Families are supposed to be havens of safety. When the people closest to us become perpetrators of horrific violence, the shock is amplified and the fallout often reverberates for generations. In this video, there are 5 high-profile, deeply disturbing cases where family members killed those they were closest to.
Sat down with Watts in January. That was 2 months after he pleaded guilty to killing his wife, Shannon, his daughters Bella and Cece, and his unborn son.
In the early hours of August 13, 2018, Frederick, Colorado became the setting of a nightmare that would horrify the world. Christopher Watts, a seemingly devoted husband and father, strangled his pregnant wife, Shanann Watts, and suffocated their 2 daughters, Bella and Celeste. Then, in a calculated attempt to erase his crime, he buried Shanann in a shallow grave near an oil site and stuffed his daughters' tiny bodies into separate crude oil tanks, as if trying to bury his guilt in the same darkness that had consumed him. Just hours later, Watts appeared on television calm, composed, pleading for the safe return of his family. "If you're out there, just come back," he said, standing in the driveway of their home. The same driveway where he had carried their bodies into his truck, one by one, under the cover of night. Viewers saw a man desperate for answers. Investigators saw something else, a performance. It all began to crumble when Shanann's close friend Nicole Atkinson grew concerned. Shanann wasn't answering calls or texts, missed her doctor's appointment, and didn't show up to a business meeting. Atkinson called police and rushed to the Watts home, sensing something terribly wrong. When officers arrived, they found Shanann's purse, phone, and car still there, but no sign of the family. Even her wedding ring sat on the bedside table. Watts told police he didn't know where they were, that maybe Shanann had taken the kids and left. But neighbors weren't convinced. One neighbor's security camera caught something that would change the case forever. In the early morning darkness, Watts could be seen backing his truck into the garage and loading it before driving off. It was the bodies of his wife and children. The FBI and Colorado Bureau of Investigation joined the search. Watts, trying to keep up the act, agreed to a polygraph test. He failed it spectacularly. Within hours, he broke first to his father, then to detectives claiming that he had killed Shanann only because she had smothered their daughters. It was a desperate lie. The truth, revealed later, was far worse. Watts had planned everything. He'd been having an affair, telling his mistress that his marriage was over, even as Shanann posted loving photos online. She was 15 weeks pregnant with a boy they planned to name Nico. Watts didn't want another child. In prison, letters later revealed, he admitted he had slipped Shanann oxycodone in hopes of ending the pregnancy. That night, when she returned home from a business trip, she confronted him about his infidelity. Watts strangled her as she fought for her life. Their daughter Bella walked in moments later, confused. "What's wrong with Mommy?" she asked. Watts told her Mommy wasn't feeling well. Then he loaded Shanann's body into his truck, with Bella and Celeste still alive in the back seat, driving them to the oil field where he'd later take their lives one by one. The details that came out in court were gut-wrenching. Bella, the older sister, fought back, her last words pleading for her father to stop, but Watts showed no mercy. He smothered both girls and pushed their bodies through narrow oil tank hatches, leaving scratches on their skin from the metal edges. Shanann was buried in a shallow grave nearby. When the bodies were found, the world was stunned. On November 6, 2018, Watts pleaded guilty to multiple counts of first-degree murder. The death penalty was taken off the table at Shanann's parents' request. They didn't want another death on their conscience. He was sentenced to 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus decades more for tampering with the bodies and killing the unborn child. Today, Watts serves his sentence at a maximum security prison in Wisconsin. In later interviews, he confessed to planning the murders for weeks, blaming the affair and his desire for a fresh start. But his calm demeanor, even in describing how he took the lives of his own children, remains one of the most chilling aspects of this entire case. The Watts murders became one of the most infamous examples of familicide when a parent wipes out their entire family. Netflix's documentary, American Murder: The Family Next Door, shocked millions, using the family's own text messages and videos to show the haunting contrast between Shanann's hope for the future and the darkness brewing in her husband's heart. In August 1989, Beverly Hills police received a frantic call from Lyle Menendez. His voice shook as he cried, "Somebody killed my parents." Inside their luxurious mansion, officers found a horrifying scene. Jose and Kitty Menendez were slumped on the living room couch, both brutally shot with shotguns. The attack was so violent that Jose's head was nearly destroyed, and Kitty's body was riddled with bullets. It looked like a professional hit, cold, quick, and merciless. At first, the story made no sense. Jose was a rich entertainment executive, and the Menendez family lived a life most could only dream of. Lyle, 21, and Eric, 18, told police they had gone to the movies that night and returned to find their parents dead. Their tears seemed genuine, and detectives initially suspected a mob-related killing, given Jose's business connections. But as weeks passed, cracks began to form in the brothers' story. Instead of grieving quietly, the Menendez brothers started spending huge amounts of money. Lyle bought a Porsche, luxury watches, and even a restaurant in Princeton. Eric hired a tennis coach and flew first class around the world. In just a few months, they spent nearly $700,000 of their parents' money. To detectives, it looked less like grief and more like celebration. Still, there was no solid evidence linking them to the murders. That changed when Eric, racked by guilt, confessed to his psychologist, Dr. Jerome Oziel. He told the doctor everything about how he and Lyle had planned the killings, how they had bought the shotguns, and how they waited for the perfect moment. The confession could have stayed secret under doctor-patient privilege, but Oziel's girlfriend told police about it, fearing for her own safety. Soon, the brothers were arrested and charged with murder. When the trials began, America couldn't look away. The Menendez brothers sat side by side in court, their faces emotionless as prosecutors painted them as greedy killers who murdered their parents for money and control over the family fortune. But their defense told a different story, one that shocked the nation even more. Lyle and Eric claimed that they had endured years of sexual, emotional, and physical abuse at the hands of their father, Jose. They said their mother, Kitty, knew but did nothing to protect them. According to the defense, the murders weren't about greed, they were about survival. The brothers claimed they believed their father was about to kill them to keep his dark secrets hidden. The courtroom became a war zone of emotions. The brothers cried as they described the alleged abuse, while the prosecution accused them of manipulation and acting. The first two trials ended in mistrials because the juries couldn't agree. Some believed their story. Others thought they were cold-blooded killers. In 1996, during the third trial, the tide turned against them. The judge ruled that evidence about the alleged abuse would be limited, and prosecutors focused on their greed and spending habits. Both Lyle and Eric were found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. It was a cold November morning in 1971 when something unimaginable unfolded inside a grand Victorian mansion in Westfield, New Jersey. Behind the quiet walls of Breeze Knoll, a man named John Emil List made a decision that would shock America for decades. He believed he wasn't destroying his family. He was saving their souls. John List was a deeply religious man, the kind who never missed church, who spoke softly and lived by order and discipline. To neighbors, he seemed polite, reserved, maybe even dull. But beneath that calm exterior, his life was crumbling. He had lost his job as a bank executive and was drowning in debt. His wife, Helen, was sick and struggling with alcoholism, and his teenage daughter, Patricia, dreamed of becoming an actress, something he saw as sinful. His two young sons, John Jr. and Frederick, were growing up in a world he believed was turning away from God. On November 9th, he decided there was only one way to fix everything. That morning, as his children left for school, List walked calmly into the kitchen where his wife sat. Without hesitation, he shot her in the back of the head. Then, he climbed the stairs to the attic apartment where his elderly mother lived and killed her too, a single bullet above her eye. He later told police he didn't want her to suffer just to go to heaven. When his daughter Patricia, 16, and his younger son Frederick, 13, returned home from school, he greeted them with the same horrifying calm. Each was shot execution style. Then List made himself lunch, cleaned up the blood, and went to his eldest son's soccer game as if nothing had happened. When he brought 15-year-old John Jr. home, the boy fought back, but List fired again and again until he stopped moving. He placed the bodies of his wife and children on sleeping bags in the mansion's ballroom, laid them neatly side by side, and left his mother's body upstairs. In a letter to his pastor, he explained that he couldn't let his family live in sin and humiliation. Killing them, he said, was his way of ensuring they reached heaven. He then turned down the thermostat, turned on religious music to echo through the empty halls, and disappeared. For almost a month, no one noticed the family was gone. List had written notes to the children's schools saying they'd gone to visit a sick relative. He stopped the mail, the milk, the newspapers, everything. But as days turned into weeks, neighbors started noticing something strange. The mansion's lights stayed on day and night, burning out one by one. When police finally entered through a window, the smell hit them first, then the sight. 5 bodies, carefully laid out under the glow of a flickering chandelier. John List had vanished. There were no photos of him left in the house. He had cut his face out of every family picture. Investigators had no idea what he looked like. The mansion later burned down under mysterious circumstances, and the trail went cold. 18 years passed. List built a new life under a new name, Bob Clark. He remarried, worked as an accountant, and attended church regularly in Virginia. He smiled, he prayed, and no one suspected a thing. Then, in 1989, his story aired on America's Most Wanted. A forensic artist had created an eerily accurate clay bust predicting what he might look like after nearly 2 decades. A neighbor recognized him immediately. Within days, the police had him in handcuffs. When John List finally confessed, his explanation was chilling. He said he killed his family to save them, that welfare would have shamed them, and that he couldn't bear to see their souls lost.
What was your initial meeting with her like?
I was retained to represent her, went down to see her, and I immediately recognized that there was a physical manifestation of a mental illness, if you will.
It was June morning in 2001 when Houston police received one of the most haunting 911 calls in Texas history. On the other end of the line was Andrea Yates. She told the dispatcher she needed an officer. Her tone distant, almost detached. Minutes later, first responders entered the Yates home in the quiet suburb of Clear Lake City and were met with a nightmare that would shake the nation. 5 small children, all dead, drowned one by one in the family bathtub. Andrea Yates wasn't a stranger to despair. Born in Houston in 1964, she had been a brilliant, high-achieving student. By all accounts, she was driven and compassionate, the kind of person everyone thought had her life under control. But beneath that image was a lifelong struggle with mental illness. As a teenager, she battled depression and bulimia. And after marrying NASA engineer Rusty Yates in 1993, her quiet struggle grew into something darker, something no one around her truly understood. Andrea and Rusty shared a strict religious worldview and believed they should have as many children as God allowed. They did, 5 in total in just 7 years. With each birth, Andrea's mental state crumbled further. She suffered severe postpartum depression, slipping into hallucinations and suicidal thoughts. At one point, Rusty found her shaking uncontrollably, gnawing at her fingers. Soon after, she tried to take her own life by overdosing on pills, and later, by holding a knife to her throat, begging her husband to let her die. She was hospitalized multiple times and given powerful medications, including Haldol, which briefly stabilized her. But every time she recovered, Rusty encouraged her to stop treatment and have another child, believing her faith would carry her through. Doctors warned the couple repeatedly that having more children could trigger another psychotic episode. One psychiatrist even told them that another pregnancy could guarantee future psychotic depression, but they didn't listen. When Andrea gave birth to her 5th child, Mary, in 2000, it marked the beginning of her final mental collapse. After her father's death in March 2001, Andrea spiraled completely. She stopped eating, stopped taking her medication, and filled her days with frantic Bible reading and self-harm. Her psychiatrist, Dr. Mohammed Saeed, urged that she be supervised constantly, that she should never be left alone with her children. But on the morning of June 20th, 2001, Rusty Yates left for work as usual, confident his wife could manage for an hour before his mother arrived to help. That 1 hour changed everything. In the silence of their suburban home, Andrea filled the bathtub with water. One by one, she drowned her children, starting with Paul, then Luke, then John. She laid each of their bodies neatly on her bed. Then she drowned her baby daughter, Mary, leaving her floating in the tub. When her oldest son, Noah, walked in and saw what was happening, he ran. Andrea chased him, caught him, and held him under the water until he stopped moving. She later told doctors she believed she was saving their souls. She called 911. Then she called her husband and told him simply, "You need to come home." Her confession shocked America. During the trial, prosecutors called her a murderer, demanding the death penalty. But her lawyers argued she was insane, consumed by postpartum psychosis so severe she couldn't tell right from wrong. The courtroom became a battleground between morality and mental illness. In 2002, a jury convicted her of capital murder, sentencing her to life in prison. But when it was later revealed that one of the state's expert witnesses had lied on the stand, her conviction was overturned. In June 2007, Chris Benoit, a celebrated WWE superstar, killed his wife, Nancy, and their 7-year-old son, Daniel, before taking his own life. The discovery of what happened inside the Benoit family home in Fayetteville, Georgia, left the world stunned. A horrifying fall from grace for a man once admired by millions. For 3 days, the family's quiet suburban home concealed an unimaginable horror. On the night of June 22nd, Nancy was the first to die. She had been bound at her wrists and ankles, likely terrified and helpless. Investigators later found she'd been strangled in a violent and intimate act that spoke of rage and control. Her body was discovered wrapped in a blanket, with a Bible placed beside her. There were no signs of struggle, no sounds that alerted neighbors, just the chilling silence of a life brutally taken. The next morning, June 23rd, 7-year-old Daniel lay asleep in his room, unaware of the nightmare that had unfolded. Toxicology reports would later reveal that he had been sedated with Xanax, likely unconscious when his father ended his life. There were no bruises, no marks of struggle, only the eerie calm of a child who never woke up. Another Bible rested by his body, placed there by the same hands that had ended his young life. By June 24th, the once disciplined, respected athlete had descended into despair. In his home gym, surrounded by weights and reminders of his former glory, Chris Benoit took his own life. He used the cables of his workout machine to hang himself a chilling end to a weekend of unthinkable violence. When police arrived 2 days later, alerted by concerned colleagues after Benoit missed a WWE event, they walked into a home that had become a mausoleum. 3 bodies, 3 lives, no note, only questions that would haunt the world of wrestling forever. What drove Chris Benoit to such horror? In the aftermath, investigators and fans desperately searched for answers. Some pointed to years of head trauma. Benoit had endured countless blows to the skull, steel chair shots, and punishing matches that left him concussed over and over again. When doctors examined his brain, the results were staggering. His brain resembled that of an 85-year-old Alzheimer's patient. Severe chronic traumatic encephalopathy had destroyed his impulse control and emotional stability. Others pointed to steroid abuse, depression, and the immense pressure of maintaining his image as the Canadian crippler, a man who never showed weakness. But the signs of strain had been there long before. Nancy, herself a former wrestling valet known as Woman, had filed for divorce in 2003, citing abuse and threats, though she later withdrew the complaint. Friends noticed changes in Benoit's behavior in the years that followed: erratic moods, isolation, paranoia. Those closest to him recalled phone calls and messages that didn't sound like the man they once knew. Just before the tragedy, Benoit left a chilling message for fellow wrestler Chavo Guerrero, his voice distant and groggy. "I love you," he said, words that would later feel like a final goodbye. When the world learned what had happened, WWE canceled its scheduled show that night and aired a tribute. But as the grim details surfaced, the company swiftly erased Benoit's name from all future broadcasts. His matches, his championships, his legacy gone. It was as if he had been wiped from the sport's memory, a ghost that no one dared mention. Yet, even years later, the Benoit case continues to provoke reflection and heartbreak. Fans and wrestlers still struggle to separate the man they admired in the ring from the killer he became. It forced the wrestling world to confront its dark side, the toll of head injuries, the silence around mental health, and the hidden turmoil behind the spectacle of fame.